All right, good evening, and welcome to the Tualatin City Council meeting for June 24th. We'll start in our traditional manner with Pledge of Allegiance, led tonight by Robert Kellogg. All right. So first item on our agenda are announcements, and announcement number one is the introduction of our new fire chief. Soon to be ex-Chief Dyke. Welcome.
Thank you for having us. Good evening. Thank you for giving us a little bit of time. I'm taking the fire chief around, and sadly, this is the last stop where he gets to visit the city councils of the 11 cities that we serve.
Well, our name's in your name, so come on. Should be here. Yeah.
So one of the things we do know is the fire chief is retiring very soon, but I don't know if you all knew the CFO is also retiring at the exact same time. So we did a coast-to-coast search for a new CFO and a stringent process. We found a CFO formerly at Metro, who will be working for us now, Team Quality. He's already started learning the ropes from Deborah Graveler, and she had 30-plus years of service with the fire district. So that's a lot of institutional knowledge that we're going to lose. This kind of event doesn't come along too often. It's 10 years that the fire chief has been our chief. And so now with him leaving and our CFO leaving, there's an opportunity to restructure the organization a little bit, take a look at how are we doing things, how are we staffed, and make some changes in organizational structure. So we did a few things that we changed from that first. The one thing that I'm happy to say is we stood up a government affairs team. So now instead of just a PAO or even a division chief for this area, you'll have a whole team that will actually reach out to local cities that we serve. So it's going to be a positive thing. But you didn't let me talk too much, so I'm going to give you my quick brief on the fire chief without having taken him around, and I'll surprise you with what I say. So watch this space. The fire chief has done a lot for TVFR, but what a lot of people don't know is what the fire chief has done regionally, on a state level, and nationally. He's done a ton for the fire service across the nation. And some of the things that people probably don't realize this fire chief did was right now, if you graduate from high school in Oregon, you have to have hands-on CPR. And that's because of Chief Dyke. He started the program at Valley Catholic years ago, and then worked with Beaver schools and then state legislators to actually now require children to have CPR. So we'd love to be everywhere all the time when seconds come, but unfortunately we can't. So now we have this standing army of people that are growing up in the state of Oregon to have hands-on CPR skills. So that was my one nice thing. That's all he's going to let me say, but there's a ton that we could go on. But now I'll hand it over to Chief Dyke for his resume.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. For the record, I'm your fire chief, Mike Dyke, for the next, I think, 6 days and 5 hours. So I just want to say, I did not want to end my tenure as your fire chief and my career without coming by to see all of our cities and counties and see all of you to say thank you. It has truly been an honor to serve as fire chief at TDF&R and serve the city of Tualatin. You, along with the city manager and staff, have been a great partner for us, and we've just had so many great initiatives and really trying to do collectively, one mission, which is to make people feel safe and have a great quality of life where they live. And it's been truly an honor to be able to partake in that initiative and those initiatives with you, along with your police department. Chief Steele and the entire force have been wonderful to work with, and just have so many great things to talk about, but we know that we don't have enough time. But I just really appreciate the partnership with the city, and although it seems like it's flown by in a blink of an eye, I just want to say thank you. Chief Weiss mentioned some changes in the fire district and a new CFO. I will tell you that the board of directors and I were talking about my departure almost a year ago, and they went through an exhaustive process to make sure that my replacement
Mhm.
So I'd be happy to pass that on. But I don't think that's going to be necessary. And in fact, I'm excited for the organization and the plans that he already has assembled and his team. So I'll be sitting with you watching the organization continue to excel. So thank you for the opportunity and a chance tonight to come by and say just that.
So what are your plans in the future here?
My wife has a lot to say about my plans.
Yes.
It's 33 years in the fire service for me, and but I'm not going to retire. Still have a lot of passion for public safety and the safety in the communities. I sit on a couple of boards, both governor appointed boards and some national boards. I actually just became the president of the Metropolitan Fire Chiefs, which are the largest cities in the world. TBFNR is on the small scale of
Yeah.
this, but I'll be serving as their president for the next year, and there's some international travel that goes with that. I want to stay involved with public safety and continue to kind of move some of those initiatives forward and give departments like TBFNR more options on how they can serve their community.
Chief Weiss, anything else to say?
Well, we do have a little more information to share, but not on that particular topic. So
All right.
different topic.
We'll do the goodbyes after that.
Okay. So we met with Chief Steele, and he couldn't be here tonight, but he wanted us to pass on some stuff. As we know, July 4th is coming up rapidly approaching. And so he wanted us to share a little bit with you about what Tualatin PD is doing and what we're doing. Of course, you can drop off fireworks if you don't want them at any fire station. So you can bring them there, and then we'll dispose of them at the end of the season, if you will. And as you also know, fireworks cause fires. And each year it's hard. We try to say, be safe, use legal fireworks, or go to a show, see a big display for the park. But still people use them, so we wait to see what the aftermath will be, and a lot of times it does result in fires. So we're encouraging people to use safe fireworks, use legal fireworks, or go to a show, and avoid all the consequences of that. Tualatin PD, as well as TBFR firefighters, will drive around to meetings on July 4th to offer safety and encouragement and hope that we do the right thing. So we want to share that.
Can you mention, because I know a lot of people forget this, with the flying objects that are illegal and what happens when they land on a wood shake roof?
Yeah, fire.
Yeah. People don't, it doesn't click in their heads. We have a lot of houses here in the city still with wood shake roofs. And a lot of, trees, and it's been pretty dry. Seeing we have a little bit of rain, but
I found that at the end of my career, I've reflected a lot on my career, and I can't tell you how many times during the 4th of July I've gone a house fire that the house was severely damaged, and all that happened was a little bottle rocket was shot in the air and landed in the wrong spot on a shake roof. And a few minutes later, we had an entire engulfed
right.
space and roof with the fire. So we're not talking about large fireworks that can cause devastation. We're talking about the smallest of the small. So that's why we mention things like this, like Tualatin PD is so concerned along with TBFNR, because no one ever thought or set out that evening to destroy their neighbor's home or their own home, but they were just going to do something innocent in their mind, and it turned into devastation that changed families' lives. So we hope folks take this really seriously. We want you to have fun. That's why there's a lot of shows that you can go to and watch professionals do it. But even with that, we'll be helping those professional shows make sure that their shows don't get arrested.
Yep, yep.
And to your point, the two biggest concerns would be roof fires and then how you dispose of your fireworks once you have nuisance, because they can start a fire later on. So
Yep.
even if you use legal fireworks, disposing of them properly.
The bucket of water thing.
Yeah.
All right. And then, as far as I think Chief Steele's mentioned in the past, if someone's getting annoyed in their neighborhood, I think he mentioned don't call 911 because they're just going to be buried with, I shouldn't say nuisance calls, but it's going to be a lack of, resources to do for priority. They should call the non-emergency number. What's the best number to call?
That's right, 503-629-0111.
One more time?
503-629-0111.
Right. So call the non-emergency number, because you folks in the police department will be driving around anyway. And we want to keep the 911 lines open for critical emergencies. Unless your house is burning, call. But if it's because, the noise is too loud or something like that, or kids are setting the fireworks out in the street, as long as there's not a fire, call the non-emergency number, correct?
It goes to the same building, the calls go in the queue. It just doesn't take priority or an emergency line away from an actual emergency.
Okay.
So we appreciate it. The public would use the non-emergency line for just that. With non-emergencies, they just want to turn in a complaint or something like that.
Okay. And as far as working with you in the last 8 years, I very much appreciate working with you, Chief Dyke. You've always been very approachable. You and I crossed paths at so many events. It's been funny. You probably do with other city councilors. You've always been there to answer a question. You've come to the city council numerous times with your presentations on quarterly updates, the new firehouse going in across the river, not across the river, pretty much across I-5, and then, supporting your bond measures. So I just appreciate you always keeping us informed, and if I had a question, you're readily there to respond, and so are your public affairs folks. Cassandra Ulvin's a rock star. I know she's moved on, past that position, but all your firefighters are almost our spokespeople for you, because we see them at events, and they're always chatty, they're friendly, and they promote TVF&R tremendously. So I wish you best wishes, and welcome. We look forward to working with you, Chief Weiss. Yep. Others?
Thank you very much for all your service and your willingness and openness to always talking with community members and all of the residents here in the city. I think that that's always greatly appreciated, how much you are out in the community and part of the community, so that people recognize you and they just feel like they have a much more personal connection with TVF&R, and I think that that's been a great hallmark of your work with the department, and I know we all appreciate that very much. So thank you for that, and best wishes in your next career.
Paul?
Yeah, Chief Dyke, I want to thank you. Way before I came on council, I ran across you on a lot of different things here in the city of Tualatin, and again, as was stated, just always open, always very welcoming and around and answering questions. And again, not just because I was a city councilor, because I wasn't then. I was just a resident of Tualatin, and great treatment of respect, and I think it's testimony to what the values of TVFR has and what you're inheriting, Chief. And thank you so much for your service to the community.
I think one of the things you do is, as a consultant, is teach your firefighters how to beat the police in competitions, because you're always losing. I mean, that'll keep you busy right there. There you go. The oyster eating competition. Come on. Right. So you have time to work on your format.
Maybe that will be my new mission.
That's it, right? But thanks again. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
All right. Item number 2, new employee introduction. Luis Milera, hopefully I'm saying it right, with Jeff. Did I say it right or no? Did I butcher it?
Yes, you said good enough.
Good enough. Now, how do you say it? How do you say?
Milera.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So good evening, Jeff Knox, Public Works Director. It's been a while since I've spoken with you. A few minutes. Yeah, so we're here tonight, again, super excited to add another person to our staff, this time in our water division. So Luis, close.
Good.
He's a utility technician 2 in our water division, so working for Terry Stinky. He comes to us most recently from Lake Oswego, but just before that he was in Tualatin, and so he's returned to the better city, to the better world.
Well said. Well said.
So he attended Chemeketa Community College and worked for Coca-Cola for about 13 years before deciding that water was cleaner than Coke and entering the water world. As a UT2, he'll be helping the team at the base level, just provide clean, plentiful drinking water in Tualatin. He also, one of the things we liked about him when we interviewed him was his knowledge of the ASR, so we help him with the
Okay.
ASR. Just kind of deepening your strength there, and changing out some commercial water meters, and just kind of all the things that the water division does to operate as a team and be accountable to that team. When he's not at work, he's busy at home in Tualatin, so he has some other advantage. He lives here, which is great.
with his wife Tegan. And he was not doing all of that. Well, his wife, her family owns a wheat farm, so he works on the farm to help them out as well. And I don't know when you find time to play sports, but so yeah, so we were super excited to have Louise on our team.
And I just want to say thank you to Jeff and the water crew for giving me the opportunity to come back. I hope I can just be an asset and bring some knowledge in maintaining this water system. That's great. And they're like stupid.
I like this guy.
So I'm glad to be here.
Well, welcome back. You know darn well, since you've been here before, how important water is here in town, and people are very concerned about it. It's near and dear to their hearts about the cleanliness and how well our water system works. So having you on Terrence's team is terrific, because that guy is just amazing with water here in town. So having folks like him and you making sure our water stays clean, stays supplied, and we're ready for most anything that can happen, hopefully. I'm looking forward to having you back. Okay, other questions, comments? All right, come on, do the handshakes. All right, whoa, it's freaking out. Okay, we're up to public comment. And this is an opportunity for anyone to address the council regarding an item that is not on tonight's agenda. Please keep your comments to about 3 minutes. If there is anyone here who would like to address the council, this would be an appropriate time. You don't need to be signed up to speak to council. I don't have any sign-ups. So does anyone want to speak to council on an item that's not on the agenda? All right. Moving on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda, these items are considered routine. They will be adopted by one motion unless someone in the council would like an item removed and heard separately later tonight. The consent agenda tonight consists of item 1, consideration of approval of the minutes for the work session and regular meeting of May 28, 2019. Item 2, consideration of resolution number 5452-19, awarding the contract for the Boones Ferry Road at Celeste Drive project to R&R General Contractors, Inc., and authorizing the city manager to execute a contract. Item 3, consideration of resolution number 5453-19, authorizing personnel services updates for non-represented employees for FY 2019-2020. Item 4, consideration of resolution number 5444-19, authorizing changes to the fiscal year 2018-19 adopted budget. Item 5, consideration of resolution number 5445-19, amending the City of Tualatin fee schedule and rescinding resolution 5412-18. And finally, item 6, consideration of resolution number 5456-19, approving and authorizing provisions of workers' compensation insurance and coverage to volunteers of the City of Tualatin. Would any city councilor member like to have an item removed?
Yeah, I'd like request item 5, resolution 5454-19 be removed.
All right. Any other requests?
Motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as amended. Any discussion on the motions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? It's approved. All right, special reports. Item 1, Tualatin 2040 project update. Welcome.
Joe Northwest, who's handling the housing needs analysis and the economic opportunity analysis, and Angelo Planning Group, who is handling the broad policy components, so mostly the things that are outside of housing and economic development. I'd also like to acknowledge the city staff project management team, including Mary Ravitch, Steve Coper, Jonathan Taylor, and Garrett Ryder. Tonight's update on the Tualatin 2040 project includes policy issue identification, the housing needs analysis, and the next steps coming up in the project. This is a little bit of background. In late 2018, the City of Tualatin developed a development code modernization project, which was known as Phase 1 of the Tualatin Development Code Improvement Project, or TDCIP, you may fondly recall, and that was a multi-phase project. In 2019, we launched Tualatin 2040 project, which essentially is Phase 2 and 3 of that former project. The 2040 project is the policy phase of the project, and it may likely lead to some policy updates to the city's comprehensive plan and the development code regulations. Currently, we're in the policy issue identification stage, and if you see the green there going across code updates, that's where we are with the yellow star. As part of the Tualatin 2040 policy issue identification effort, the project team, together with Angelo Planning Group, who did the facilitation of most of those interviews, basically interviewed a wide range of stakeholders who volunteered their time to share their interests, their concerns, their ideas regarding land use planning in Tualatin today and in the future. There were 4 key questions that were asked to participants. They were given those questions both before they came to the interview and then asked those questions again during the interview. So they had a chance to think about it a little bit before. These were 1-hour individual interviews primarily, and they involved 15 different participants. And then in addition to that, we did a large group interview with the agent task force. I would say 25 or so people were there. You were there, Mayor.
I was there.
Yeah. So we had a really good group and good turnout there. So what we asked was, what land use topics and issues do you think should be the city's priorities? Secondly, do you think the city's current policies still speak to Tualatin's priorities, or should something change? Third, are the regulations in the development code implementing the policies and the community priorities? Are the built results turning out the way we want? And finally, if choices must be made about what chapters of the Tualatin Development Code to update first, what do you think should be done first? So we're really asking them for their priorities that, for many of them, they've held these priorities for a long time and shared them in quite a bit of depth with us when they came in. And I think it was both a good experience for them as well as a good way to collect a broad range of what are the folks in our city thinking? What's important to them? So the participating stakeholders shared their thoughts on a wide range of topics, some very specific, some very general. And Angelo Planning Group organized these into categories that you see above under this slide, what we heard. While all the topics were discussed, the first 2, housing and livability, and transportation and parking, by far were the top priorities for most of the stakeholders. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the housing needs analysis itself. So what is a housing needs analysis first off? It examines the city's available residential land supply. And it forecasts, and keep that in mind, forecasts. So it's basically saying, given the current conditions that you have, what's your city going to look like in terms of the forecast? So it's forecasting future housing needs based on demographic trends to determine whether a city can accommodate future growth. Or, alternatively, whether additional land supply is needed and or growth can be accommodated through policy and regulatory changes. On the onset of this work, we established a community advisory committee comprised of 16 people. We have a nice diverse range of folks on that committee. they took on the task of providing policy input on the housing needs analysis and economic opportunity analysis. At the same time, we formed a technical advisory committee that has a core of about 10 staff on it, but that staff reaches out to a wide range of advisors and experts in housing and economic development. And we have 7 PAC meetings. We're going this week on to our 4th, and with the technical advisory committee, we'll be completing 3 out of 4 as of this week. So we're getting to the middle and a little bit beyond that right now. So this is a flow chart that talks specifically about how the Community Advisory Committee took on the issue of the housing strategy itself. And you'll see on the left-hand side, there are 3 steps. They are identify categories of housing issues. and toward the end of the presentation, I'll show you those 6 categories. The second was then to develop goals for each category of the groups of issues that kind of fell together. And the third was to develop a list of actions to implement each goal. So the PAC has gone through 1 full meeting where they did this work, and that was one of your attachments to your staff report, the details of that. The process to complete the housing strategies is anticipated to be completed in the fall of 2019. It'll be followed by the policy prioritization stage, which you see on the upper right-hand part of your slide. And then the policy implementation stage will be completed in winter 2019 at the end of this year. This chart shows basically household by income level. What's striking about this particular slide is the 3 blue bars on the left are all in the low income category, going from extremely low income to very low income to low income. That comprises 46% of our households. It's a very significant number. So that was one of the real big takeaways for us. Extremely low, 16%. That means they make below 30 to 50% of median family income. Very low, another 15% means they make 30 to 50% median family income. And then low income, 15% means they make between 50 and 80% median family income. The big takeaway I want to tell you about this is this means these folks cannot afford market rate housing as a large amount of our population. To the right of that, you'll see middle income households. Some middle income households can afford market rate. We'll assume for the purposes of this data that they can. They make up 15% of the household population, and high income households make up 39%. So you see heavyweight, 46% on the low end, 39% on the high end, and a very small middle.
Councilor Ramsey, do you have a question?
Yeah, how much is the MFI?
How much is the MFI? How much is the median family income? The exact number I don't know right off the
Can
top
you
of my head.
ballpark
That's
it?
very easy to give to you.
Okay.
I don't remember the exact.
30%
have-
is less than, I think it's less than 18 grand. Because if you're at 30%, you're extreme poverty by the federal government.
We have quite a bit of other data. This is just a very short presentation, so I apologize.
Oh, no, that's okay.
Present the spread, but we can definitely answer that question and probably provide some additional help.
Thank you.
Okay, so now let's talk about cost burden by tenure. Tenure means either renter or owner. It falls into one of those 2 categories. So here you can see the breakdown of the housing cost burden for renter and owners that are paying 30% or more of their income on housing. This data
gonna put it, pause. In 2017, the median household income in Tualatin was 72,580. So that's about 30% of that is about 22,000. Yeah. A household is family for you.
So one of the other products of this housing needs analysis was revising the billable lands inventory. So Metro does the billable lands inventory. This was updating it by a number of months that had gone by. So this is telling us that 322 acres of, there are 322 acres of billable land, and you're looking at the breakdown there. And the significant takeaway there is that the median high has only 1 acre of land, so quite efficient, and the high density rise, the very last line there, has 0 acres. So we have 2 areas where we have basically little to no land. So that's an area to look at. This has the same information under billable acres, and then to the right you'll see 3 scenarios. Scenario 1, the first scenario, is basically where we are today. Scenario 2 adds 10% on that. So if we were going to try to add 10% more units, that's what the numbers would look like. And then scenario 3 is if we added 20%. Just to give you an idea, that's not our target at this point. This is starting to show you how to think about this. So scenario 3 is showing obviously more, and that's where it takes us. The housing strategy that the CAC is working on, that may go beyond that. It may look at other things or other ways to go about making those changes. So these are the broad categories that the consultant presented for consideration to the Community Advisory Committee. Wider variety of housing types, housing affordability, land availability and infrastructure, redevelopment opportunities, connections with housing, such as transportation and other types of connections, and funding options. And they asked the question, are we missing any broad categories? And the Community Advisory Committee felt quite comfortable that this actually really kind of covered the range. So there's sort of the organizing principles of then how they developed the specific goals for each one of these and then actions off of that. And that was one of their attachments. And finally, we are at next steps. So on the left, somewhere in 2019, the most significant things are to point out is that we will have 2 open houses and 2 online open houses coming up that will take a look at this whole range of material that we've collected both through the Community Advisory Committee, the Technical Advisory Committee, stakeholder interviews, and others. And we'll be trying to get feedback from them on what we've heard, like trying to true up. Do they agree with what we've heard so far, the direction that this seems to be going, or not? Or do they have other ideas? So that's what we'll be doing in those processes. Open House 1 is coming up in July, and it will be complying with other city projects. Open House 2 is in September. It will be a standalone just for Tualatin 2040, and it will also most likely be meeting some public requirements, being currently that we're severely cost burdened city now, just as of the end of last year. So we have new requirements both from House Bill 4006 as well as from the OAR that OHCS requires that we do certain things. And one of the things is to hold a public meeting at a minimum, and it has to meet certain requirements. So, and we have to invite certain people who are severely rent burdened, and also agencies that serve those folks, and a range of other things. So we're coupling that second open house most likely with that need. On the right-hand side in the fall, we'll complete our 7th Community Advisory Committee, and then we'll go right into drafting the prioritization plan, which will put basically all of our buckets of ideas into some order. That will then come to the council, and then to the Planning Commission for recommendation, and back to council for adoption, hopefully
Questions? Paul?
On one of your first slides, one of the concerns, and something I've never seen before, so I'm hoping you can elaborate on it, was transportation and parking. And I hadn't heard parking was an issue. Was that respect to residential? Was that respect to the commercial?
What slides actually?
It was one of the very first ones.
Number 5.
Oh, what we've heard. Yeah, so the way that that's the stakeholder interviews, there was some guidance, but it was also somewhat open to hear what, so we weren't necessarily saying absolutely, you can only tell us about what we have on our short list.
I get that, but I'm just, so did anybody zero down into what specifically were they talking about with respect to parking? Because that's the first time I've heard that's a concern, and so I'd like to know what their area of concern was, if that came out, or it was just a generalization that it's hard to find a parking space in Tualatin.
What I've heard is that surrounded the issue of connections, so how housing and connections to transportation really work in the city. I know there were comments about congestion that I think you would all realize that we would hear that kind of thing. But I think there were also comments about parking in the town center area. We do have a report from Antelope Planning Group that we can provide to you. That is the summary of all of that information. That might be the best way to get it to you if you like that.
One of the things that we heard at the advisory, when we convened multiple members of the different advisory committees, sorry, was to not lose sight of parking. So when we're thinking about housing, and we're thinking about housing options, and for example, with the accessory dwelling units, and this has come up in planning commission, is one barrier to accessory dwelling units is the requirement for parking. And so there's kind of two sides to that. Like, some people would like to see that barrier removed. Some people don't want that barrier removed. So it was like, don't lose sight of that thought process, of that discussion. Was one of the things. And then some of the other, I think, comments that came up were there's trade-offs in building housing, and one of the costs is parking. So are folks willing, they want to see more types of housing, are they willing to then say that we don't need to require as much parking? And so that answer wasn't always, it wasn't always, yes, we're willing to, reduce parking requirements. That's kind of a discussion.
Maria?
So I was at the diversity task force last Wednesday, and we talked about housing and the needs, and basically the same questions that were up there. There were several comments and several needs. A lot of them, in fact, I think all of them were renters, people that have been renting in Tualatin for a long time, even up to like 20 years, and they've seen rent go up every year. So these individuals, still the reason why they stick around is because they have children in school and they haven't graduated yet. And there were some really heartfelt stories from the individuals there. So my question is, when we do these communities questions, and do we go to the apartment complex, and because these are the individuals that are looking to buy. People who own property here are basically, we're sort of established. We're just waiting to get to that, I guess, mature age where we want to be in either a one floor or continue having a 2-story home. But these individuals, their families, they have like 2 to 3 families living in one apartment because they can't afford the cost of living here. So those are, I'm just letting you know some of the issues that came up that I've never heard before. And one of the ladies that was there said, I want to stay here. I love Tualatin. I've been here 25 years. I've rented in that same apartment my entire life. And I don't want to go anywhere, but I'm pushed to go because of the cost of rent and because I can't afford to buy a home here. And and she was really saddened to hear, thinking, just the thought of leaving the city was really hard for her. And so those were the kind of comments that I heard. When it comes to transportation and parking, one of the issues that they brought up was, so for instance, some of these apartment complexes, you're only allowed to park one car, and if you have another additional car, then it's like $30 a month extra. So it just keeps adding $20 here, $30 there. So what they do, they actually park in public parking, or they use parks to park. Like one example that they said was the Affolati area where Las Casitas is. They say that because they can't afford to pay, or they have 2 cars, 3 cars per apartment or family, they end up parking in the park. So they park there, and then they walk home. So those are maybe that's why transportation and parking came about. I'm not sure. But when I saw the parking, what they heard, I'm thinking that was one of their issues as far as parking, that they can't park in the locations where they're actually living because they either have to pay more, which they can't afford because they're paying already high rent. They're paying even water, trash, whether you have a 2-family person in a household or 8 people in an apartment complex. So it's kind of divided amongst everyone. So those are the issues, and these individuals were talking about wanting to stay in Tualatin, not wanting to move. The next option to move would be Woburn or Salem, which they really don't want to do. And those are just comments that I heard. But my question is, are we going to these apartment complexes where renters are? Because these individuals have been living here, and they want to live here, buy here, and shop here, and want to stay here. So when you do these community engagements or questions, where are we doing these?
So we did do some contacting initially in the project, to call some of the apartment buildings and talk with the property managers. We started on that, and then the project is at a pretty high level at the beginning. So I think we're going to return to some level of that during this as we build up to the second open house, because that's sort of the focus. It's really that whole, the severely cost burden, and really trying to understand what the issues are there in such a way that we grasp them as a city, and then we begin to really come up with ways to address those issues.
So we are moving towards.
We're moving towards
Okay.
that piece of it.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, so all of those comments that came from the diversity task force will get wrapped into this work. So that's one way right there that we've captured that story. And then on the community advisory committee, we were very we tried very hard to get good representation, and so there are renters who are on that committee who can represent that voice. I don't know, and we have asked some demographic questions, so we know people who are falling into like, extremely low, middle, upper incomes, that kind of thing. But we did want to make sure that renters representing on that.
Robert.
Yeah, could you go back to the buildable lands inventory slide? So it looks like from here, that includes Basalt Creek? Okay. So if you backed out what's going to be built in Basalt Creek, because I think we all expect that to get up pretty quickly, what's that going to leave us with in terms of buildable lands?
It's about like 142. It's basically half.
It's about half of that, with 1,000 acres this year.
Okay, so the low density is around Horizon, and then the medium low is a part of that, and then what we've been calling the central sub area and north of there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and so without those two, we have 150 acres of buildable lands?
We have, I'm not sure I'm exactly how.
Okay, well, I mean, that's the rough numbers, and I always hesitate to do math in public, but So what I'm looking at there in terms of the dark green, is that color coded to low density, or is that medium?
It's medium low.
Dark green is medium low density residential.
Okay, so looking at it from here, I'm just stretching to figure out how that's 150 acres. I mean, they look like some fairly small pockets of dark green and light green.
So just to clarify, without the salt,
Mhm.
we have 172 acres. And so you're asking.
From what I'm looking at on the map.
Horizon is actually a medium low density,
Okay.
and then the low density, okay, so.
Does it look like it's along Boones Ferry Road?
Okay, so this, so here's Boonesbury. Okay, so that, here's Horizon, that white space. So this is
Yeah.
all medium low.
Okay.
And then this lighter green is the low, and there's the low.
So I guess my question, what makes land buildable? Because as I look at the map, it looks like there's a huge cluster of light green around Avery and Boone's Ferry. And to my mind, there are existing buildings there. So what makes that buildable?
So primarily using vacant and partially vacant land, and it's evaluated
Okay.
as to its potential.
So for example, Community Church, I forget what the name of it is, but right there at Boone's and Avery, they've got, 6 or 7 acres attached to the church, and it's like a disc golf course or something. We're counting that as buildable land.
The church, I think, were churches taken out?
I think they're public exempt for the most part, unless you made the case that they were actively planning or considering developing it for housing work.
So churches were taken out, but the way that, they base, so Beacon Northwest, our consultant, kind of base this off of, the way Metro looks at partially vacant land. And what that includes is like, I don't know, if there's like half an acre that can get developed, then that becomes partially vacant. So there's some lots in that area, small houses, big lots. So
Mhm.
they would be looked at as partially vacant and could be redeveloped. Redeveloped is kind of a tricky term, but maybe it could be something you thought about.
Okay, because what I'm just trying to get my head wrapped around is I think everyone would agree there's a need for more housing in Tualatin. But what's that realistic number of what we can do? Are there enough buildable lands? And if not, then we need to look at, how do we increase the amount of buildable lands, whether that's by expanding, the city's jurisdiction or any number of other things. So it doesn't look like we're there yet in the analysis, but I just wanted to put my shine on that to say that, while we have a number in front of us, I don't think it necessarily reflects reality.
So one of the things that came out of the forecast is if we did nothing,
Mhm.
what's our capacity for units, right?
Yeah.
1,014 units. It's very low over 20 years.
Mhm.
That doesn't mean that we're held to that. That is the reality of a forecast based on Metro's methodology, essentially. So the strategy that we're working on now is sort of the creative piece of where do we really want to go, irregardless of the forecast. Where do we want to go as a city? What are we aiming for? What population do we think we're going to be at? What are we aiming for in terms of the number of units, the types of units, the types of things that will support that, whether that's changes in rezoning or whether that's changes in height, density, or other types of changes of a wide range of housing types, some of the housing types we don't currently have, etc. So
And
that's
attendant
where we move.
infrastructure costs and
Right.
so on and so forth down the line.
So right now, we're right in the middle of the drafting of what will become a product from the housing needs analysis on the strategy. And the strategy is looking at those categories that
Mhm.
I put out there, and you saw the details. So you saw some of the ideas that have been bubbling up so far of where we should go. Some of those are financial incentives. Some of those are looking more closely at affordability and what can we do about affordability to stay affordable in Tualatin. So those are the categories. Those are some beginning ideas. beginning of the process. Really.
And it's no doubt a big project. And so I encourage you to continue working on it hard, and then I look forward to the next update. Thank you.
Well, to continue on Robert's shine here, on the buildable lands, Forest Grove is going through the same kind of analysis, and they just completed what they thought were their buildable lands inventory. The city council kicked it back because land that was included as buildable inventory, they knew was never going to get developed. So I want to make sure when Eco Northwest is doing this analysis that they're talking to their property owners to even see if they would even sell it and have it developed, because Forest Grove came up with a bunch of acreage that they knew there was no way in hell that was their inventory, because they knew these landowners have no intention to ever develop or sell. So now they're going through a second go round of their inventory because it's wrong. So I just want to make sure we don't fall in that same trap Forest Grove just did.
So this is really just based on, this billable land is just based on data.
Mhm.
It's not projecting whether people will sell or develop.
But that skewed Forest Grove's numbers. That they had to redo the whole thing because it skewed their numbers the wrong way. They basically said they had more land than they did, and they knew they didn't have it, so they had to redo the whole section of the study. Remember, they were talking about it at the PAB meeting. Val brought it up.
Yeah, it's true. Well, and I have other things.
Okay,
Oh,
go ahead.
okay.
I'm just, so I have some, first of all, I went to one of the meetings, the planning meetings, and just sat in and observed, and really liked the process. People that are contributing to the 2040 are spending a lot of time and giving a lot of thought, engaged in really positive decision, and it's being really well facilitated, and I really appreciate that. And all the work that everyone's doing on this. When I look at the map, I live off Boone's Ferry. My concern is at certain times of the day, as it is right now, before we've put in 2 crosswalks by the school, it's completely backed up as it stands. Before we build up Basalt Creek, and then if we widen these roads and we have buildable lands right next to the roads that might need to be widened, that's something that just sticks out to me because I deal with that as it stands already, and I'm concerned about that as another artery in our city that's going to become clogged. And then as far as the open house, where I'm kind of piggybacking on sort of what Maria was talking about, but when we're inviting people, are we focusing on people that live in this city for especially the open house with the, I forget the terminology that you use but low-income people are invited. Good. And I too, just from my, experience as a social worker, I just think some of these areas we're looking at they're not walkable. It's not really a walkable city. So the parking situation is really true because people have to commute to work. And there are people that live more densely because of affordability, where more people live together or people are trying to raise families. So there's more cars. And I think a lot of times there'll be offsets for parking. And then what happens is people really have another strain in their lives. It's not just that their cars are breaking down. It's not just that they have more bills. It's not just that they don't build equity if they're renting. So those kinds of things I think are real concerns in Tualatin. If I was in a walkable neighborhood, I'd be thinking differently, but I can certainly understand the concerns. And until it is walkable here, you know what I mean? Like pretending like it is, I don't think, that's just not what I want to be doing for people that are already struggling in so many different ways, is having another burden on a situation with their housing. Anyway, but I'm excited. Thanks for all the work.
I have 2 things, actually. First of all, when we're done with the meeting tonight, if you wouldn't mind, can you please upload this version of the presentation online, because I have an earlier, yeah, thank you, that would be terrific, because the numbers do change dramatically. And then my second question is, when we get back to the household by income level, and I'm not quite sure how we could do this, but there's a difference between sort of like low income household and like fixed income household, whether we're talking about young households and starting out, or and then our senior population. And so, because I'm concerned and interested in seeing the data also, and what the options would be for, you know, seniors living on a fixed income that want to stay in the community. Because I know we have young people that are living here that, you know, might want to be buying property and upscaling to meet a growing family, but then we have a lot of people that are retiring here and want to live either in place where they are, or, you know, downsize and stay in the community. And, you know, when you have, you know, low income is a huge problem, fixed income is also a huge problem. And I want to make sure that we're getting as much feedback and input when we're looking at homeowners and renters, so we have them kind of on both ends of the age scale.
Anyone else? Okay. Do you have anything else? All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks for the feedback.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
All right. So next up on special reports is item number 2, update on community engagement efforts. Hello, Betsy and Tanya.
Hello.
Good evening.
Mayor and Council. My name is Tanya Williams, Deputy City Manager, and I have with me tonight Betsy Roof, our Community Engagement Coordinator. And we have a little update for you tonight on our community engagement efforts. So this, of course, relates to one of your council goals to have a connected, informed, and engaged community. And we really try to make sure that public involvement and community engagement is part of everything that we do. So Betsy and I, of course, are in the city manager's office, but we really support every department and division on every program and project and how they do community engagement. What we see is that community engagement helps build community relationships and trust, so that when we are looking for input on things, we already have people that we can go to. Of course, we want to create opportunities to have dialogue with people and help identify issues and priorities. It improves communication, and really it makes for better decision making and better outcomes for you as policymakers. I'll turn it over to Betsy to kind of give you an update on some of the big efforts that we've been doing over the last few months.
Hello, Mayor and Council. So I'm going to tell you what we've been up to, which is taking selfies. So this is with City Hall Selfie Day for us. It's City Office's Selfie Day on August 15th here. So I don't know if you knew that you employ a Sasquatch, a dinosaur, and a crab. So yeah, pretty exciting.
Crawfish, not a crab.
Oh,
Come
yeah.
on.
Oh my gosh. Start over. Which we will be doing that again this year, August 15th, if you want to participate. So besides taking selfies, we have been, some of the things I'll be letting you know about or giving an update on is supporting the Diversity Task Force, supporting our CIOs, Citizen Involvement Organizations, supporting their CIO annual meetings, and just collaborating citywide on engagement. And a lot of summer engagement opportunities in summer fall. So the Diversity Task Force that we have been mentioned earlier, they have chosen key priorities that they want to participate and focus on, and one of them is housing, as you heard earlier. The way that they've chosen to participate in that is really just to share their stories and experience on the topic, which, as you heard earlier, are very impactful. We're working on having our agenda be a community-led agenda, which they are helping
education, that even though as Parks and Rec, we actually, all of us benefited from their hard work. And so an example of one of their comments on their survey was, Parks and Recreation does an excellent job of behalf of the community. Thank you. Another comment was, I love the signs on Tualatin River Road. It's how I remember events. I like that one. I imagine someone driving down the road and be like, what am I doing this weekend? And then be like, oh, I'm going to the Blender Dash. So I thought that comment was very funny. Community development, they're doing their part, as you heard, keeping the community involved in so many of the projects. Public Works, they just had a garden corner for street 2002. So, even though all our departments and staff, are such an important part of our community engagement, and we have, like I said, so much going on, we wanted to highlight a division that we don't think gets enough recognition, and that's our volunteer services. They touch all aspects, of our engagement efforts. And, they're just a very vital component of our engagement. And their numbers are just very impressive, especially for not a very huge city. They had, as you can see, they recorded 2,500 hours of volunteer service and 2,600 volunteers, which is so impressive. So we really just wanted to give them a big shout out and just thank them so much for all their work, because they're just such an important part of all of our engagement efforts. You name what type of volunteer you're looking for, and they can find it. So a big thank you to them.
Yeah, so as Betsy mentioned, there's a lot going on in the city, right? So in each project we work with has a need to connect with the community in some way, whether it's Tualatin 2040, talking about housing, or Tualatin moving forward, getting inputs on project suggestions, or a new project that's launching, talking about our water supply strategy. And so instead of each of those projects having an open house, we decided this year to consolidate efforts and go out to events that are already happening. So as you guys know, there's a lot of events that go on in the Commons during the summer, and so instead of doing 5 different open houses for 5 different projects, we decided to target 2 different events that are already happening, and go out with city information and try to utilize those events to get feedback. So we'll be out on the Commons on July 23rd and July 26th. The 23rd is a library event on the Commons. They'll be having, it's a musical performer who does songs in Spanish, actually, and those events really draw a more multicultural family crowd. And then the event on Friday, the 26th, is a concert on the Commons. I can't recall the exact performer, but that tends to draw a big crowd as well. We asked Julie, our recreation manager, which concerts were the most popular, and this is the one that she recommended. So we'll be out there this summer at these events that are already happening, looking for feedback on some really big projects that are going on.
And sorry, I just want to go back to the diversity task force, because there's something really important I forgot to share. So I love my job. I get to do a lot of fun events, but it's not all fun, and we definitely, our big focus is to hear the community and just to try to improve so much our relationship. And a big part of, huge part of my job, or all of it, is relationship building. And at the diversity task force, we have a lot of fun, but one example I wanted to give of something that comes out of that is actually at our last meeting, one of the members expressed a concern he was having with the trash containers. There's, I guess, everybody puts the containers and they block the street. And Councilor Reyes actually helped us connect with Street Public Services, and they're currently, they just sent us an email that they're looking into it. We sent them his address, so they're, this is their team, so we got a just regular team. But so, and also what came out of that is they're going to come to the diversity task force to meet the group and just answer any questions. So, so we're definitely making changes, and it's such a simple thing, and it's such a relationship building tool. And to them, it's like, oh my gosh, all I have to do is let you know, and then you will help me. So we're definitely hard at work and really building those relationships. I want to make sure that I let you know that. And so another summer event, which is
National Night Out coming up, August 6th. And that is an event, you know, the police department does. And last year we had 22 neighborhoods that registered with the police department. This was last year. I was at a Stone Ridge Neighborhood Park. We showed up and it was fun to have them. They were on chairs and looking at us, and it was just really good time. Folks came out and met them, got good fun times. You know, the police make an effort to try to visit as many registered block parties as possible. They bring special guests, as you know, like Cross and Martin and Elisa. That's a fun event that's coming up.
If you haven't already registered your event, encourage you to do so. Visit the website. Everyone can do it online. We want to get even more registered this year. Exciting.
And my favorite thing to report on coming up is Viva Tualatin. So Saturday, September 14th.
You're supposed to say it more excited. You made us do it.
I know.
Where's the hands?
Viva Tualatin!
There you go.
So I do hope that you guys all learned the catchphrase, which is Viva Tualatin. So today we just did part of our marketing video, which we interviewed the mayor and Councilor Reyes. So we're just so proud and so excited of this event. It's the first, you know, cultural celebration in the city. Viva means life, and that's a perfect name to celebrate Tualatin's vibrant culture. This has been so much fun to collaborate internally with staff, citywide, and our community partners. This has really helped us come together internally and with the community. We really just hope to make, you know, our city, you, staff, and everybody proud with this event, because it's just been so great to, it's a celebration of us and who we are, and it really reflects the diversity of our community. But it's also been such a great relationship building internally and with the community. The poster or the banner, the design is from Tualatin High School students in the art class. So they are the ones that came up with it. Yeah, so you'll have a sticker. The Diversity Task Force helped us come up with a name, which is perfect. And then we incorporated, you know, arts and culture for the Art Splash. So it's just been such a community project, and we're so excited for it, and we hope you're all there. And we can't wait for you guys to see all of it that we've been working on. So that's what we have. Muchas gracias, and see you at Viva.
And in Spanish it is?
Nos vemos en Viva.
I learned that.
Oh, nice.
Questions? Paul.
So I grew up in the CIOs, and Tanya was just an amazing addition to helping those organizations grow. And Tanya, I still remember specifically when you announced you were moving on, congratulations, and you were bringing in Betsy, and I just said, I just hope that somehow this can continue. And Betsy, what you have done has been, you've taken everything that Tanya's done and you've made it better. And that is just really, I think, a testament to your amazing skills and your energy and your enthusiasm, which is just terrific. And I think it shows. I missed the River Park CIO this year because of my son's baseball game over at Sherwood, so I had to go. But I went to all those, and I was really impressed. The turnout this year was significantly higher at each one of the CIOs, and so it was really, it's great to see that go, and all these other things that you're, Viva, Tualatin, and everything else. And I just really appreciate the effort and the time and the commitment that you give to the city of Tualatin, and thank you, and Tanya, for your leadership as well, and thank you very much.
Others? Bridget?
Just because I have my thing, the night that you guys are doing it is Big Bad Beat, Funk, Soul, and Dance. So that sounds like a lot of fun. I'm just saying. And I know just from being on the arts committee liaison that they're super excited and charged up about being part of Viva Tualatin too. So it's been such a neat thing to be able to broaden culturally, as well as modalities of art are going to be, different mediums are going to be broadened, and there's just a lot of excitement around it. So I just appreciate all the work. Thank you.
Maria?
Yeah, Betsy, thank you for your work. I attend the diversity task force because actually Betsy called me to attend, and I just really enjoyed, and I love seeing you interact with the crowd. You do have a lot of fun, but then you bring in topics that are very important to the community, and somehow in a very comfortable way, people start sharing things, and I think that's really important, the way you engage the community, and thank you for doing that.
Anything else? Well, I mentioned in work session this month's or next month's July issue of Tualatin Life, the big, pretty much a third to two-thirds of my article is about everything that's going on during the summer to get people to attend. So hopefully if they haven't seen the flyer or they don't see it at Tualatin Sherwood Road, they'll read the article and they'll know when the summer reading kicks in, when the movies kick in, and when the concerts kick in. Yep. And then I promote the Crawfish Festival. Too early to promote Viva, so we'll get to that one at a time. All right. Right? Yeah. All right. Okay. Anything else? Thanks for coming tonight.
It's the pre-promotion.
Yes. All right. We're up to public hearings. Item number 1, consideration of resolution number 5446-19, adopting the City of Tualatin budget for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2019, making appropriations, levying ad valorem taxes, and categorizing the levies. Don.
I was going to have the fireworks, this one that you heard.
Yeah. Or musical instruments or something.
Only legal.
Yeah.
Only the legal ones.
I wanted everything to go
Yeah.
up in the air.
Yeah.
Can't go up in the air.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm John Hudson, the Assistant City Manager. That's still hard to say. And Finance Director with City of Tualatin. You have in front of you this evening resolution number 5446-19, which does a number of things. It adopts the City of Tualatin budget for the upcoming fiscal year commencing on July 1st. It makes the appropriations. It levies our ad valorem taxes, and it categorizes our levies. The Tualatin Budget Advisory Committee approved the budget on May 20th, 2019. The total fiscal year 1920 budget for the City of Tualatin is $130,884,125, as approved by the Budget Committee, and includes some amendments that I'm asking you to consider this evening. The general government tax rate would be approved at $226.65 per $1,000 of taxable assessed value. In addition, we are asking for a bonded debt levy, which is not subject to the Measure 5 limitations, in the amount of $2,874,790. Oregon state law requires the City Council to adopt the budget prior to July 1st. So your staff report that you have in front of you contains a lot of background information about the city's funds and structure, including the 2 funds we added this year. The 2019-2020 budget is a fiscally responsible budget with a positive fiscal health position. Our revenues continue to be stable, and the city's departments continue to look for efficiencies and savings to keep the expenditure budget financially stable. In addition to the budget that was approved by the Budget Committee, the City Council has the ability to change the budget by no more than 10% of the total budget in each fund. We do have some changes that we're asking for this evening. We are asking for changes in the following funds: the Sewer Operating Fund, the Road Operating Fund, the Park Development Fund, and the General Fund. And I'll go into a little bit of what each of those are. So in the current year budget, in the Sewer Fund, we had $35,000 budgeted for a sewer easement machine that we are going to buy with the City of Lake Oswego. We are finalizing the intergovernmental agreement, so that purchase will not be made prior to June 30th, so this next week. So we're asking that $35,000 be carried over to next year's budget to make that purchase. In the Road Operating Fund, so there were some changes to the Sanger Sidewalk project that were included in the 1920 approved budget. Some of the adjustments were not included in that. As part of the Community Development Block Grant revenue and some fund projects were not included. So we're asking for that to be fixed. All the pieces of that to be included in the budget. In the General Fund, the Arts Advisory Committee has some
which I asked for, monies for the $54,000, and I inadvertently had it moved into the reserve account that is actually for projects that are gonna be happening in the year, so it needs to go into the capital outlay. So this resolution in front of you just changes those categories, since that is a categorical, budget appropriation, that changes it, okay? With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Right. Any questions? Right. Since this is a public hearing, anyone in the audience would like to testify or give us your opinions of resolution number 5446-19? Anyone in opposition, for? All right. Discussion? Motion?
Motion to approve resolution 5446-19.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 5446-19. Any discussion on those motions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. No, it's a resolution, public hearing. And the guy's not here to correct me, so.
Resolution on public hearing
Is not, yeah. It's gotta be in general business. Yeah. So I got, all in favor said aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, resolution is approved.
Thank you.
Voted twice, that means that we have twice the budget.
No.
All right.
No, that means it's half the budget. That works twice as hard.
All right. Thank you, Don. Thanks, Don. All right, moving on to general business. Item number 1, discussion on the council vacancy process. Am I leading, you leading?
I don't really have a presentation. We received 8 statements of interest. To me, that seems like a reasonable number for the 6 of you to interview in one sitting, but hopefully you can talk about that a little bit. You can set a date for the interviews if you're so inclined tonight. I would presume that would be a different date than a council meeting. It would be an off-council meeting date, but you can also talk about that. Before that time, about a week in advance, we'll provide you a binder of the information with the 8 candidates and their application materials. And then we'll have some questions for you to ask the candidates. So I think that was it from my
And
perspective.
what about the questions? Because Sherilyn sent out the questions from Coquille, Almsville, and the ones we used last time, so if you could get a chance, please review them and send her your top 6. We don't want to discuss what those questions are, but send her so she can consolidate it and come up with the top 6. I did mine today, so. So going back to the first item is, in the past, I've done this once or twice, and it seemed to have worked well, except for the weather, that having everyone come in and do an interview at a special city council session works well. I think we did one in the police department one time and the other one in the Heritage Center. And they gave, each person came in, and we had the rule that you couldn't go in before your interview, so you didn't hear the questions ahead of time. And I thought it went pretty well. I think we had each person with like 15, 20 minutes, a couple minute break between each person so you could get up, walk around. And it seemed to go fairly well. Most of the time, I think people wrapped it up early. They really didn't go the whole time. It was pretty rare that we went the whole time with each person because people are obviously nervous, talk fast, and
It was snowing outside.
oh yeah, the weather didn't cooperate that night, so maybe they wanted to go home too. But what do other people think? You've been through the process. So.
No, I think it's a very good process. I think you should just set an alternate night time and
Hopefully it won't be like 110 degrees, the total opposite, and the air conditioning's broken, so.
Hopefully for like a certain week.
Well, yeah, so are people comfortable with the 8 people being interviewed, special city council meeting at a place to be determined?
Yes.
All right, so that's question number 1.
Okay.
So question number 2 is, oh, it's the fun one, picking a date.
Sunday, July 4th.
Yeah, July 4th. So, do you want to do the first or third month? I mean, I know we all have council assignments and stuff like that. So I guess pull out your calendars. Do you want to figure that out tonight? Do a doodle poll? What do you prefer? You want to get knocked out tonight? Obviously,
would-
we want to do this sooner than later, obviously.
That would be great. So I will remind you that July 15th, you have something scheduled. Maybe
17th.
Tuesday the 9th of July. Let me just go to the council calendar, the city calendar, and see if there are any, like, committee meetings or, that might be,
I don't got anything on the 9th either.
I don't have anything on the 9th. And I have almost all the committees.
You and me.
You get gold
I'm
star,
open on
I
the
kid
9th
you
as
not.
well.
My meetings are in the morning, so.
The ninth,
Well,
the ninth is
I
fine
like
with
to
me.
yeah, and it would be in the evening. There's something happening at the library, so it would probably have to be at the police
tour of
department.
Durham.
The police training room is open?
Look at you go.
The tour of the water treatment facility at Durham. Clean Water Services.
Do you know if there's any of you know of any regional stuff on the 9th of July?
I'm not available on the 9th.
Oh, you're not?
I'm not here that whole week.
Okay.
That's true. There won't be any ties. Well, you actually don't vote that night anyway.
The 15th, how
You
about
just
the
listen that night.
How about the 16th?
I could do the 17th. I have the Arts Advisory Council on the 16th.
You have the art advisory when?
On the 16th.
Oh,
I
on
could
the
do the
16th.
17th.
I can do the 17th.
17th.
Of June? July?
July.
Yeah, I can do June 17th. I can do that too.
In retro.
There'll be an election by then.
So after 5 on the 17th?
After 5 on the 17th.
Okay. Let me just make sure on the council, on the city calendar. There's a diversity task force group meeting that night at 6. I don't know that, other than, you could probably miss it, yeah. And I think,
And potentially some consider, because we're looking at about 3 hours.
Two.
You said 20
2
minutes
hours, 2
per.
hours.
So 2.
Yeah, so if you do
Time
15 minutes.
between-
We can do, it goes fast.
Does it?
It
Okay,
really
'cause I was
does.
gonna say,
Even in
if
the
they're,
snow, that
the
was
one
Yeah.
one set of calendars we don't have here are the people who have
Right.
applied. And so if we just set one date and somebody says they can't come, is that just too bad?
Yeah. That's what we did last time. They sent a letter.
one person sent a letter.
Yeah.
We can reach out to them right away.
Yeah.
And, on the council committee on advisory appointments, the sooner we reach out to them, we very rarely have people that can't,
And then they just submit a letter if they
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
So what time? I'm sorry, what time?
After 5.
17th at 5:30?
Sure.
Give you enough time, Nancy?
Is 6 better for you?
Probably
Nancy?
6 is better.
Yeah, I don't really care if I have to stay too late in the evening. I mean, I can, it's,
It's gonna be shorter than this.
yeah, no, but then the 17th, that works.
It's Wednesday the 17th.
Oh,
July.
No training rooms available that night.
Okay. The police, in the
Still do
police.
it?
oh, okay, sorry. I could read that would help. Yeah, I can do 5:30 on Wednesday.
5:30, okay.
We'll do it at the police department.
Because that way we have the lobby here.
Yeah, there's the lobby out
Yeah.
front.
Stick people up there.
And then we will agendize this for the July 22nd council meeting.
Okay.
So you can talk about it and make the decision that
Yeah.
night.
It's on my calendar.
Agenda
That
is,
bling it's official.
I made up that word.
All right.
Doesn't ring.
Don't judge.
Where's your bling go?
I don't know, I haven't figured that out. It's on do not disturb
Alright.
in silence.
It's a city
so
manager.
It makes no noise except for
5:30.
calendar
Okay.
change of bling.
So you have everything you need?
Oh,
Yep. So you
Thank
have everything
you.
you need, Sherlyn, for that?
excuse me.
Yes, just send me any preference on questions or,
Okay.
Yep. All right.
put together 5 or 6 questions.
All right.
We'll work with the meeting.
Great. All right, so moving on to items removed from consent agenda, we did have an item removed from consent. That was item number 5, consideration of resolution number 5445-19, amending the City of Tualatin fee schedule and rescinding resolution number 5412-18. So, considering this is my first one pulled off consent, does the city do any testimony, review the resolution?
We're
I know
fine making a little presentation about it.
Nothing?
We're fine making a little presentation
you
about
want,
it.
yeah.
The,
I mean,
so,
all responding to Paul's concerns. Yeah.
all I wanted was to make sure that the letter from Verizon was entered, and if they, I mean, I believe in their letter, they said they'd have someone here who may or may not want to speak.
Yes.
And allow them the opportunity to be heard and to make public your email to the counselors in that information anyway about the whole background, which I guess Jeff was going to, anyway, that was my.
Mr. Fox.
Hi, Jeff Fox, Clerk Treasurer.
Still? Yeah.
Thanks for a few more minutes.
Hey now, Dad, don't even joke about that.
And you're not retiring
You're
yet.
not going anywhere.
So, yeah, so I guess I don't have a PowerPoint, obviously. I thought I could put one together really quickly and just, no, so, I guess at the end of the day, we don't really expect our costs to go down if we switch to option A where PG owns all the poles for small cell, because if you remember back to December 10th, our costs were really based on the hours that we assumed staff would take to manage facilities in the right of way, regardless whose poles are on the poles, or whether they're on street poles or power poles, or we said no street lights, but had they been on street lights, we still have a staff hour cost associated with that effort. Couple of things to note, reaching way back to December to our presentation, we talked about the fees essentially applying to all the poles in the right of way, whether they were ours or not, and then the PGE could charge an additional lease fee. And so tonight, as PGE was leaving, they did say they've negotiated that fee with the small cell carrier, so that exists. So, so I think just from our standpoint, nothing has really changed as we talked about in our previous presentation. We also, way back in the December 10th presentation, one of the things we required in our standards was that if a small cell carrier is attached to somebody else's pole, like say PGE, that they would provide us with proof of their agreement with PGE to be able to attach that pole. So again, I mean, our intent was really just to cover our staff's time and what we thought that would cost. And then really we didn't contemplate anything additional to that. So one of the things that we didn't talk about, and this just kind of goes to sort of future, is we didn't talk about costs like electricity. Right? So our December 10th costs were strictly about what we thought it would take us to administer having small cell in the right of way, regardless of whose poles, and it didn't really contemplate what other costs, such as a lease fee or something else, would be associated with that. So I think that's going off of basically nothing. That's my presentation.
All right. Thank you. I have Mr. Kuhn from Verizon here. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, councilors. My name is Steve Kuhn, and I work for Verizon Wireless in the Network Engineering Group. And my office is at 19950 Northwest Transmore Drive in Norwood. So, thank you for pulling this off the consent agenda tonight and allowing me to speak. I do appreciate that. One of the things that I heard tonight, I wasn't going to speak about, but I understood back in December, as Jeff just mentioned, that the $625 annual attachment fee was for small wireless facilities, whether they were on, that would be the fee, whether they were on a city-owned pole or on a PGE-owned pole or any other pole. And I think what I'm hearing tonight is that there may be another fee for attaching to a city-owned pole. And I guess I would just like to say, I think the fees are already attachment fee, it says maintenance of poles, city-owned and PGE-owned. So that included that. We might not have included the electricity, that might have been left off, but definitely that was included there. So I guess I would just like to get a good read, and maybe from staff or council action in the future of what that might be, because when we're looking at putting small cells in Tualatin, we have to look at all our costs. We determine what that is, and then we put it into our budget, and then it's going to be the next year, right? So if those change in the meantime, then that changes our business case for the town. So of course that's a non-issue if you sell all your poles to PGE, but we don't know what you're going to do with that. The second part of that is that the staff report includes a recommendation that you divest ownership of the pole. And we believe that would reduce the city's costs associated with poles in the right-of-way significantly. We base that on other jurisdictions that we're involved in that we've seen work. So when we saw the 625 with the selling of the poles, that made us think, well, isn't there some reduction in cost because now you don't own any of the poles anymore? And if you look at what PGE charges you for the repair, the maintenance, the replacement, and the installation of poles, that's a lot of work. They're charging you $155 a year for all of that, and now we're being charged $625 per pole, so 4 times what PGE would be charging the city for a lot of the same stuff. So I guess in the end, we would request that staff review the costs, and maybe they already have.
You can wrap up.
Am I finished? Okay.
Yep.
That the sale of the poles would bring, the savings that would bring, and try to reflect those savings in the costs. So thank you for the opportunity, allowing me to speak. I appreciate it. And, any questions you might have.
All right. Questions for Mr. Kuhn? All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Discussion, questions? Want to ask Jeff any more questions?
No, I just
Paul.
Oh, sorry, Nancy. One of the things, I'm going back again to the December meeting, and in that we approved an annual, and the speaker just said an annual attachment fee, and so I'm assuming that's the fee to attach, and that there's no additional fee, and that's why I was concerned. But I guess the thing that I didn't think about earlier, and it was kind of addressed by our speaker here, is that they have the option. They can put it on a PGE pole. They can also put it on a telephone pole, I suppose, and then they work with the telephone company. Or we know you can't put it on a traffic light pole. I think that was really clear in our discussions. And the other thing that I do want to remind everyone is one of the things that I had asked for, and I certainly would bring it up again a year from now or whenever we finally get this actually moving forward, is to revisit the cost, because I take this to what we approved in December from where my perspective was we were doing it in the spirit of what the new ruling was from the FCC, I think it was the FCC, and that we were basing it on our costs. And in fact, staff laid out quite a detailed outline of what those costs were, and that would be down the road, and I believe we got an agreement from staff to revisit that cost to make sure that's what those costs were, in fact, once we have some experience with it. Although, again, given staff history, that's probably a pretty accurate cost assessment. And and again, my reason for pulling out was strictly to allow everybody who wanted to speak to be able to speak and to be heard on this.
Other questions? Comments? Bridget?
I just have a comment. I just want to, I wasn't a counselor in December, so, but I did sit in the audience and watch all this. I did. And yeah, we both did. And we did our due diligence. But my thing that I feel like I just want to be really clear about is, from my understanding, what we're looking at is mostly administrative costs. So, and then it's about being in the right of way. So it's administering things that are in the right of way. So I don't know if telephone poles are in the right of way or if that would make a difference in our administrative costs. So I think that just being really clear about what we're talking about, we're not talking about power installation or anything like that. We're just talking about what it takes to administer these things. So I just want to be really clear because I think sometimes the conversation gets confusing. Thanks. From my perspective. And maybe I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, somebody tell me I'm wrong.
Other comments? Robert?
Yeah, I appreciate Mr. Kuhn's concerns, but I think that's prospective looking. We're setting a fee schedule based on what the costs are today. We know what those costs are from the staff report. I think we move forward with the fee schedule, approving it, and then if and when those costs change, then we'll look at adjusting it, which I believe we're required to by law based on the edict from the FCC and probably some associated state law. So that would be my perspective.
Okay. Anyone else?
Well, I have a question/comment. Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but going back to the December meeting, it seems to me that I recall when we were discussing the fees, I think the word fee is a little bit misleading in the way that we're using it, in that as opposed to a fee for the sake of a fee to make an application or to make a project, we're actually talking about simply recouping the city's expense that it takes us to execute someone wanting to put a small cell unit in place. We were talking about the staff time that it takes to receive an application, review a prospective site, and then make a reasonable decision on an application. I mean, that's the type of thing we're talking about with the fee that we're discussing, the $625. It isn't so much a fee to be doing something, it's just the city's ability to recoup the reasonable expenses that we go through to simply process their application and make sure that something would be installed correctly and maintained correctly.
Correct. So there were several fees we came up that we had. So we had an application fee. It was just like a one-time, you submit your application. That covered our cost to review the application.
Right.
This is off memory, so it's going to hurt.
That's okay. I'm with you on that.
And then we had, so that was a fee. We had a business license fee just to operate a business in Tualatin.
Right.
And then we had the $625 attachment fee. So that was once the application's approved, every year, it takes effort for us to manage our right-of-way.
Right.
So whenever we have something in the right-of-way, whether it's somebody's driveway or a sidewalk or street light, it takes effort and work for us to manage that. And so what we did is we itemized the hours. I think it was like 7.5 hours is what we assumed it would take us for each attachment to manage that. So let's say they need to do some work on it, and they bring one of their trucks in to do some work, and they park in our lane.
Right, we have to manage the traffic.
They have, we just have to approve it and make sure that it's legitimate and it works for us. And so it's those kinds of things that just they add up. And so, we felt like we were being pretty. I mean, it's an estimate right now, and Councilor Morrison, correctly said that we had agreed in the December 10th meeting that the year after we have our first small cell attachment in town, we go back and revisit what we really think is costing us.
Right.
And it either goes up or down at that point, depending on, if we're spending way more time, then obviously we want it to go up to cover our costs. But, as you said, we were strictly trying to recoup our costs.
Right.
Just for having something in the right of way, regardless what it's attached to.
Right.
And that was allowed through the FCC ruling. They either said, set this fee, and it was like $500 or something.
Right.
Or figure out your costs, and it can be that.
Right.
And so that's what we did.
Right. And that's just the point that I was trying to make, is that this isn't designed to be some sort of a profit center. It's simply designed to be a very reasonable attempt to just recoup what it costs the city to do business of that type.
Yes.
So,
And if we're wrong,
yeah.
we adjust it.
Right, exactly. I mean, we're trying to be very fair and very business friendly. So, thanks.
Okay. So, do I have a motion or anything like that for the resolution?
Motion to approve resolution 45-19.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to approve resolution number 544-5-19, amending the City of Tualatin schedule and rescinding resolution number 5412-18. Any discussions on the motions? All those in favor say aye. Roll call.
'Cause it
was
got
on
taken off?
consent. It's on a general business. It's on consent. It got removed from consent.
Do a roll call.
We can do roll call just for giggles. We'll start with Paul.
Yes.
Bridget.
Aye.
Robert.
Aye.
Maria.
Yes.
Nancy.
Aye.
Mayor votes aye. It's unanimous. All right.
Did you kill it yet?
No. We're gonna have to get this in the budget, get a new one. All right. Think that's it. Do I have a motion for adjournment? We did that in work session.
Oh, we didn't do the public.
Not anymore. It's
Oh,
just
when
this,
did we decide that?
yeah, just to save time. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
Move to adjourn.
I had something for public
Second.
comment.
So go ahead.
I have a
Go ahead,
public
yeah.
comment that
All
I
right.
want to make. We're at the end of, this is our last meeting in June, and so I just wanted to make a public comment because I know a lot of people in our LGBTQ community celebrate Pride this month, and I just want to reach out to that community and say happy Pride. It's a big anniversary of the Stonewall riots, and many communities surrounding us have become much more engaged, and I hope that's a direction that our community is going as well. And that's all I want to say. Thanks.
Anyone else?
Thank
All
you,
right.
Bridget, for bringing that up. I appreciate that.
No. Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion, second to adjourn the meeting. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned. Good night, everyone.
Wait, there's a development
Oh, we got
commission
TDC, that's right. Oh, I tried. It's there. All right.
because it's a whole separate,
Yeah.
you're a separate entity.
Yeah.
All right. Let me switch gears here, so open that one. What's that?
You.
He's gonna, yeah, I was gonna say, he's gonna remove everything.
I'd like to amend your amendment.
All right. So let's go ahead and call into session the June 24th, 2019 Tualatin Development Commission meeting. All right. First thing up, we have public comment. Anyone who would like to address the council regarding any issue which is not on the agenda? All right. Consent agenda. Our consent agenda tonight includes two items. Item 1, consideration of approval of the Tualatin Development Commission meeting minutes of January 14th, 2019. Actually, it's only one item. It's got squished together. And is this anything, what's the pleasure on the consent agenda? Get a vote. Got to approve it?
Move to approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
I got a motion and a second to
All right.
approve the consent agenda as read. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Item 2, public hearings. Consideration of resolution number 612-19, adopting the Tualatin Development Commission budget and making appropriations for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2019. Don is back.
They're also out there celebrating the city's budget approval.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. I am still Don Hudson, still have the same titles, I believe. So in front of you is Resolution 612-19 of the 12th Development Commission for the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget after your public hearing this evening. The Budget Committee approved the proposed budget on May 20th, 2019 in the amount of $4,041,140 and is divided amongst our administration, the Central Urban Renewal District project, and the Leverton Increment Tax Increment District project budget as well.
Tough to say.
Oregon law requires that you pass the budget before July 1st, so I ask that you do so tonight. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Any questions? Paul?
I said I had questions. So at the work session, we discussed, or it came up that a couple of us have asked, why we keep having this budget when there's no outflows going. So is that something that this year we can look at in terms of figuring out what we could close, or do we not want to do that yet? I mean, is there there may be a strategic reason which is fine, to leave this open for another year or two, but.
Well, that's exactly what we're going to talk about on July 22nd. And that's what we talked about at work session. The meeting number 3 is to talk about how to spend it, how to amend it, or close it down. Yeah.
And a recommendation from staff.
As long as there are monies in those funds, you're required to have a budget.
I get that, yeah.
All that, so.
Anyone in the audience would like to testify for or against resolution number 612-19? Valerie says no.
Yes, sorry.
All right.
What about the other two?
City staff. All right.
Valerie's powering through.
Do I have a motion?
Move to accept resolution 612-19.
Second?
Have a motion and a second to accept resolution number 612-19, adopting the Tualatin Development Commission budget and making appropriations for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2019. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Happy?
Oh, there you go. Much better.
I like the gusto.
All right.
I like making.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adjourn the Tualatin Development Commission. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now good night.